Can you see us now?
Yeah.
Harder for my old eyes. Nowadays when you get old. Over 70.
All right, so just so everyone knows, if you would please just mute yourself until it's your turn to speak, or if you have a question, that will help us kind of eliminate some feedback.
Is Dave Wrangler here?
I do not see Dave quite yet.
I hope everyone is well and bored like me.
I just wish I could get outside, I could do some gardening.
If it quit raining.
Go for a walk.
You can walk in the rain.
Not with my little dog, I can't.
You know, they make coats for dogs.
Yep.
Yeah, but she,
Use a trash bag.
she's just, I can drag her along. She's too sensitive. Just about completely hairless chihuahua.
Mm.
We do once in a while. If it's just rain and it's not 30 degrees.
Hey, Jerry, could you turn that computer back around just so that way we can keep the feedback? We had it set up so that we didn't have any feedback and whatnot.
Then I can't see you guys.
I'll get them set up with video.
Okay.
You want me to set that one up right there with video since somebody else seems to be coming in? Well, just Jerry apparently likes seeing people.
No, not really. I'm just curious. I thought you wanted it that way. So people could see me.
No, we've just got that one set up for audio.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you need that. No feedback.
Yeah, as we discovered at the last meeting.
Well, now all the laptops have their own microphones, so they start feedback and it reverberates and that will get the squawk.
So the mics aren't on.
The mics are on.
The mics are on, but there are microphones in the computer. That is what's fun.
I texted and called Dave, but didn't get no answer other than voicemail.
Do we need him to start or can we start without him?
Looks like he just logged on. Let's give him
Okay.
just a quick minute.
Terribly sorry about that. I had a banker on the other line. I could not get off the phone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now I need to find our agenda.
stepped out to get his phone.
So is Mike with us or?
Yep, he's back. Ooh, big screen.
Oh, alrighty. Shall we, we don't have to stand, but shall we recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I think it might be best if one person does it.
Or I think, is everybody on mute? Everybody's on mute except for me, I think, yeah? And Shandell. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a quick unmute, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Byer,
Mr. Byers, I'm here.
Ms. Ensley,
Yes,
Mr. Gephardt. I think he said he would not make it, correct? Mr. Hall,
Here.
Mr. Hopkins,
Here.
Ms. Howland,
Here.
Ms. Powell, Mr. Ringler's here, Mr. Friesinga.
Here.
Outstanding. Is there any public present, Rebecca, that would wish to speak at the City Hall or online?
One here.
No one there?
No.
Okay. Then I will turn this over then to the director, Mr. Womack, for his informational presentation.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm assuming everybody's muted. So, as you guys are aware, the city is required to,
Hey, Mike, you're gonna have to go to the podium.
I've never seen him look better. Oh, there he is. Never mind.
all right, people hear me now? Okay, so as you guys know, we did this back, I believe, in January. We are required by law to present information related to how DDA operates, how the TIF operates, and just various informational tidbits about where we're going in the future. As you probably all know now, due to the budget being on the agenda for today, you guys are looking at approximately $3,000 or $4,000 more this year than you did last year, and approximately $24,000 more than we had, 2 years ago. So good for DDA. You guys have put a lot of good things out in the community. I think we've seen a lot of benefit from that. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is off-street parking lots, which is the #1 thing that
I think Mike's muted.
I lost audio feed.
Both
Mike
of the,
got-
yeah, both the Shandells are off.
Yeah, Mike's muted, yeah. Rebecca, are you able to get to him?
He's not muted.
We just can't hear him anymore.
He's not muted on my end.
The new normal, folks.
Okay, can you hear me this way?
Maybe shut the council mics off if we're gonna be online.
It's just a little complicated because we get obviously feedback here. If it works. We're turning down. Okay. All right, is there echoing? Yeah, there's a little bit of echoing. All right, can you hear me now?
10 times.
Okay, what about now? Yeah, that's better.
We-
Okay. So, yeah, that's gonna kill me.
Unplug over here. Try that out.
I think that might just be for the one microphone that's in front of you. And of course, I think part of the issue is that also the microphones are recording to the YouTube. So we don't really want to turn them completely off. Yeah, I know. No, still working.
It's Bernie. It's all I can say is I'm doing this on the phone. There's no, I don't know about YouTube or there's no video. And mine's, I don't have hardly any feedback and I can hear everybody just fine. And I'm on the phone. I'm gonna mute again. Bye.
So you can hear me now? Rebecca, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I had it muted and nobody could hear me. Okay, I guess I'll just have to live with the feedback. Hopefully everybody can hear me. You'll have to hear me twice. So I'll just try to get through this real quick. The number one thing on our DDA plan is the creation of new off-street parking lots. The DDA has put some money and time into that recently, specifically with the new signage that's been put for the already existing parking lots. One of the things that we had done recently, the code enforcement officer put together a estimate of the number of parking spots that are actually available downtown. A common complaint we hear is that, well, there's just no parking in the downtown. I don't necessarily believe that. And I think now with these numbers in hand, we can see where these spots are actually located at. Now, I don't have this open just yet. Give me 2 seconds. So this starts on page 68 of the packet. And you can see at the bottom that we have approximately 356 regular parking spots in the downtown, 21 handicap parking spots, 6 reserved, and 2 bus lane parking spots. After the fire station, we estimate that that's going to be 351 regular spots, 22 handicapped, 6 reserved, 2 bus lane, and 2 electric car parking spots. And then outside the downtown area, you can see 211 additional spots along with 4 handicap spots. So it's actually quite a lot of parking. And I think maybe the next step we need to tackle is the creation of a downtown parking map. And you can see the very next page, page 69, has just something I found in 5 seconds looking on Google. We might need to put something like this together so that we can hand it out to businesses, visitors to the city, events that occur in the downtown, so that people can identify where all these parking spots are located. So this map's pretty simplistic. I think we should be able to do that with little effort. So I guess I don't need any input from the board on that, but just something that we're working on. The next thing I wanted to mention to you was the Ash and 2nd Street lot resurfacing that we're estimating is going to cost $25,000 to $30,000. This board has, I believe, $5,000 in its budget currently for that. The city council also budgeted some money for that, and we should be able to get that done in the next budget year. Now, because it fronts on 2nd Street, we're hoping that maybe the company that does the asphalting for 2nd Street would be able to add that on, which would be able to get us a reduced price, and also we would be not paying for additional mobilization. Now, the only problem is we anticipate doing this in June of '21 and not during this coming summer. But we should be able to have a nice resurfaced parking lot there, and that'll look a lot nicer for the city. And then the other thing I put in there was a map showing you the heart of Cedar Springs to the west of the White Pine Trail. Now, I put together a brief map that shows 201 feet of usable space to the west of the White Pine Trail. I spoke with the DPW department today, and they say that it's probably closer to 100 feet, not 200 feet, that's usable there. But I guess the question I was going to ask the board was whether they thought we needed 2 lanes of parking or just 1 lane of parking. Now, this morning I worked out the numbers that a 1-lane parking spot there would be about 22 parking spots. If we were to do 2 lanes, it would be reduced in scale by about 50%. So you'd only get about 32 parking spots if you doubled it. So you're only gaining about 10 extra spots by doubling it, and you're increasing your cost significantly because you're going from about 4,000 square feet to about 9,000 square feet of used space there.
Would these be parallel? Would these be parallel parking or pull-in parking?
So on the west side of the trail, we were anticipating it would be 90-degree nose-in parking. And it would be the same if we were to do the 2 lanes as well. But now they're saying it's only about 100 feet of usable space from east to west, because the further west you go, the wetter the ground gets. Well, if you're doing that, it pretty much eliminates the possibility of doing 2 lanes, because to get the 2 lanes, you need a driveway on either side for traffic circulation. And of course, if you take 50 feet from 100 feet, you know, there's not a whole lot of room left over for parking. So if we have 100 feet of usable space, 90-degree nose-in parking, we should be able to get about 11 parking spots out there. So I guess my question is to the board, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think it's important to keep that kind of a cul-de-sac area towards the end.
Can you guys hear Rose?
Yes.
Okay.
Towards the end of Maple Street to the west for turnaround traffic for larger vehicles.
Sure.
in my opinion.
Yep. So we would probably keep a cul-de-sac type area there. What we're anticipating is to the north, we're going to put a similar rope fence there. But each of these parking spots has to be 18 to 20 feet long. So we would simply take wherever the edge of Maple Street would be, and then start using that 20 feet deep going to the north to create the parking spots. And because it's 100 feet wide, 9 feet per parking spot, you get 11 spots in there. Now, hopefully Tanya, the DPW worker, was wrong about only 100 feet, because that seems a little narrow to me. But we'll put as many parking spots in there as we can. But also, Rose, and this is kind of your baby project, we'd like to use that space for grass, for some kind of park. So we don't want to go too deep north if we don't have to. And especially if we're only going from, say, 22, if it's 200 feet wide, to 33, you're just not gaining that much. And you'd have to take an additional 60 feet going north to get those extra spots. It's just how the math works out. So I just want to present it to the boards that we were knowledgeable about what's being proposed out there. And frankly, this is not really near too many businesses. This is really overflow parking for large events such as the amphitheater events, Red Flannel, any kind of spring event that occurs. But people always try to look for parking as close to the event as possible.
Farm market.
Farmers market as well, thank you. So I like the idea of having additional parking out there. I don't know if it's worth the investment at this point to create a double lane, especially if we only have 100 feet to work with.
I would just go with the one lane.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hopkins?
I'd recommend just doing the one lane versus the two.
Yeah, and I suspect that's probably what would work. Of course, this is just all preliminary based off what the DPW is telling me about the lane and how wet it is. But I just wanted to make sure that we're at least on the right path, that this is not something that's going to be used every day. It's overflow parking, so I don't want to asphalt it. That's a significant expense. But I anticipate what this would be similar to would be the parking that currently exists in front of Wriggle Park. Now, to make it a little bit nicer, we might also want to delineate each individual spot. Now, it's hard to do, obviously, if it's gravel. So what we could do, if we wanted to, is put those parking bumper blocks so that people see, hey, look, there's a bumper block here. This indicates a parking spot. So that we don't have a random assortment of people parking wherever they feel like it.
That's a good call, and those are not very expensive, quite honestly.
So we'd have a rope fence, maybe a 2 or 3 foot separation, a bumper block, and then have 11 bumper blocks so that people knew there were 11 spots there. Now, one of the things that's kind of in conjunction with this is on the east side of the trail where the rope line is already put up, we're going to put up a couple signs that say parallel parking only, because obviously we don't want people nose parking in there. But people pretty much figured that out. We just want to make sure we have signage so that on the other side, we'll have signage saying the same thing, nose and parking only. And of course, the bumper blocks, people will figure that out. So I believe that's all I had regarding parking, at least in the near term. Any thoughts, questions, concerns about where you think the DDA should be directing its time and resources regarding parking?
I think that visibility of if that second lot is resurfaced, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even know that that's there. I mean, just having the better signage that we've done, and if this is resurfaced and improved, is going to help raise awareness that it's usable parking.
Can the board think of any way we could, I hate to use the word pretty it up or gussy it up, but is there any way we could draw better attention to it other than the signage that's already put up? Do we need to put any kind of green in there, any kind of plantings, or do we have to remove any kind of fencing or anything?
I've seen in Grand Rapids, and this would be kind of playing off of the mural idea, but there is a movement in some of these places to adopt a spot where community organizations, students, whatever, can decorate, paint, put a mural in spots that, is kind of their little spot. You could even have businesses put their logos in there or whatever. And that may even be a potential little small fundraiser, but also raise awareness and, make the lots look a little better.
Yeah, I like that idea. I certainly have no objections to it. If we're going to have a fresh, brand new asphalted parking lot, that sure makes it easy to paint on. So it's a good idea. Thank you.
Well, the areas where we got the bump outs or the stopping bumpers that you're talking about putting in, we could possibly let people decorate that with chalk it up or paint it up.
I mean, they're not very large. And I don't know if we would use the concrete kind or if we would get kind of the plastic kind. Concrete's obviously much more durable. The plastic's a lot more visible because you can get it into a bright yellow color.
Just to throw anecdotal experience out on that, I think with the bumpers, you would have to be somewhat consistent because they're a trip hazard. We'd had the rubber ones for 2 years and they were torn out and got ripped up and it seemed to be far less visible to the public when we put our red concrete ones in, and they're not that expensive. I think we got them for like $30 or $40 a piece. Probably cost me that much to paint them, but we painted them all a consistent color and people do seem to see them better. They're less of a trip hazard for what it's worth.
The parking space that we talked more about before off on Pine Street by the White Pine Trail, is that kind of held off until the CBDT gets done with the trails and stuff over there?
Yeah, so the city is not really taking part in that. That's all being done by the CBDT. I haven't even seen any preliminary plans for parking up there. I know they've got plans, but I haven't seen them.
I think that would make excellent overflow parking, or if there was an event, people had to bring in equipment
Can't hear Rose.
for there to park and walk back to the.
She had unplugged her microphone because it was getting feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Barely? How about now?
That's better.
I muted my, mic. Hang on a minute.
You don't have to be. So now you can talk and then just hit the mute button and get and when
Okay.
you're done
I
talking.
was
Okay,
talking about
I was talking about the
parking lot.
parking lot on Pine Street.
It'd be a great place.
It'd be a great place for overflow,
For folks who
for
are.
folks who are coming in to perform or anything else.
They could park.
They could park after they've unloaded, park over there
Come
and
back
come
over.
back over to the activity.
Well,
The other thing I was thinking about is when we tear the fire barn down, if we have a plan for that, do we have to address that next year?
Yep, so two things I would point out, and that is that we're continuing to work with the CBDT about having a kind of a gravel driveway that goes from Maple Street north up to the amphitheater. And that's with the anticipation that performers or whoever else might like to drive up there, drop off their equipment, hopefully not park there. That's a problem we've had, especially with Red Flannel Day last year. But right now, I understand that the CBDT has a plan for a parking lot at the library after the fire station is removed. I don't know if that's necessarily what we're going to do. It's an idea, it's a possibility. But with all the other parking that's being created in the city, you know, I don't want it to a point where we bloody have parking everywhere. At some point, you have to weigh amenities in the city versus parking in the city. And so, you know, I think that's a prime location to have some kind of outdoor activity, even if it's just benches and a kind of a pocket park. I think that's an ideal location. Now, you know, I've obviously spoken with Donna Clark. She would love to have more parking. But after the fire station and the fire department moves, all of those parking spots that currently exist on the west side of the current fire department, those will all become available for use by the library patrons. And that's an additional, what, 10 or 15 spots. So I'd like to get to a point where we see how filled up it is with those additional spots before we commit to turning the fire station building pad into additional parking up there. That makes sense. So we have a plan, and it seems like it would fit. I just don't want to commit to doing that just yet. Anybody else? Okay, sounds like,
I would like to quickly back up. I just went online. I'm looking at these, a plastic parking bumper. It's yellow. It comes all ready to stake in. You can order multiple colors. Comes with 18-inch galvanized steel spikes. Is this what you had, Dave, that you said tore up? If you guys can enable screen sharing, I can put it up where my face is.
Yeah, ours were like the hard rubber ones. You could get different color and they had reflective stripes on them.
These appear to be plastic, like they're made out of recycled polypropylene. They look pretty heavy duty. If you guys, it said that my screen share has been disabled by the host.
well, I mean, I've looked at them, so I know what you're talking about. And I think Mr. Ringler's point is good, that whatever you use, it should be consistent. The only concern I'd have with plastic is the weight of them, because if we're talking about staking it down into what's essentially gravel or topsoil, those would be fairly easy to remove by somebody who's determined to remove them.
These look very heavy because they're solid polypro. It's like if you took a bunch of plastic shredded material, heated it up, and extruded it. I just sent a link for everybody to take a peek at.
Sure. Like I said, I don't personally care one way or the other. I'm just saying that maybe concrete, if they're of a similar price, if they're heavier, it might be a little bit less likely to be removed, destroyed, etc. But yeah, I don't care one way or the other, plastic or concrete.
I'll just take a look at it.
Yeah, that is pretty much what we had. Ours were though the hard rubber, which they're like recycled tires.
Yeah.
The thing you have is, I think the weight issue is one that Michael brings up, but also you got to keep in mind the plows are going to hit these, and people are going to hit these with, and that's what happened to ours. They just got ripped out. They were in the asphalt and they just got torn out of the asphalt. Whereas the concrete ones, yeah, they get hit with the plows and cars and they get little chips and whatnot, but they don't get moved, and they don't look like, even if they have a couple chips in the paint, they don't totally look trashed right away.
Just more durable. Okay. I just
Yeah,
thought
my opinion from our experience.
I was just kind of web surfing while we were talking about it.
Well, I don't anticipate that the DPW would be clearing that area of snow, just because, we're not going to have that many events out there during the winter. So I'm not worried about getting chipped by snowplow removal. I'm more concerned about hooligans and hoodlums going out there for a good time, destroying it, removing it, throwing it in the river. That's my primary concern. Okay, so I guess I'm done with my presentation. If nobody else has anything else, Mr. Chair, I guess we could move on to a public question and answer and adjournment.
If we have any other public questions and answers, otherwise I would entertain a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting.
Second.
I have Mr. Hall and Rose Powell motioning and seconding.
All right, all in favor of closing this meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Ringler, would you mind doing a roll call vote for any votes that are taken?
Non-financial, we need a voice. Was there opposition here to closing the meeting?
I think it's more just for record keeping sake. We'd appreciate if you do a roll call.
Mr. Byer?
Close the meeting. I'm
Ms.
closed.
Ensley?
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt? Not here. Mr. Hall?
Yeah.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. Holland? Ms. Powell?
Here, yes.
Mr. Ringler votes yes, and Mr. Vriesiga?
Yes.
All right, meeting's closed. Do we want to go through the regular one then as well? We're doing that also, correct?
Yep, so I need comment and approval for the budget
Okay,
at the very least.
all right. So I would hereby call the regular meeting of the DDA to order at 12:35. And in the interest of expedience, we will move directly to our roll call of attendance. Mr. Byer,
Here,
Ms. Ensley,
Here.
Mr. Gephardt is excused, Mr. Hall. Here. Mr. Hopkins,
Here.
Ms. Howland. Is Sally still here?
Just give a thumbs up, Sally.
Her microphone must not be working.
Okay, Ms.
She gave
Powell,
it,
Here.
Mr. Ringler's here, Mr. Friesinga.
Here.
All
If
right,
Ms. Howland's microphone's not working, she can call in by phone if she'd like to participate that way. The instructions are with the notice that we put out.
all right. At this point, do we have any public that wishes to speak or a board member that wishes to speak as a member of the public?
At this time, there are no members of the public in the queue.
Okay, we will move on to any conflicts of interest and ex parte communication. Has there been anyone aware? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
so move.
Second.
second,
Do you want a roll call for this as well, Rebecca?
Yes, please. And when you please make your motions, please state your name.
Mr. Hall voted, made motion, and Ms. Powell seconded.
Thank you.
I mean, we had
Okay.
others too, but one
Where-
of those.
We are voting to approve the agenda. Mr. Byer,
Mr. Byer approves.
Ms. Ensley,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yeah.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Howland.
She's no longer on right now.
Okay, Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Ringler approves, Mr. Friesinga.
Friesinger, yes.
All
Ms.
right, then we-
Howland is on and she gave a thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. And then we will move on to the consent agenda, which would include the meetings of the minutes of the regular meeting from February the 24th, and to accept and file the financial report. If I could get a motion to approve.
Perry motions.
Any second?
Mr. Byer seconds.
Any discussion, or we'll move right directly to a vote? For consent agenda, Mr. Byer,
Approve.
Ms. Ensley,
Yes.
Mr. Hall. Yeah. Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Howland, Mr. Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Friesinga, and Mr. Ringler also votes yes. And unfinished business, we are looking for a motion to approve and recommend a 20 to 21 DDA budget to the city council as written.
Before we do that, so you'll see in item M, I've highlighted $600. While I can think of many things to do with $600, that was what was left over after we did all the things that we talked about. So I didn't know if this board wanted to dedicate that $600 towards anything in particular. You could put it towards something new. You could put it towards something that's already in the agenda, in the budget, or you could simply reserve that for your piggy bank for a rainy day, or just keep it for next year's budget.
Well, my one question on this is snow removal. To my understanding, we were responsible for that, and I'm really not seeing specifically where we are allocating for snow removal.
So snow removal is under wages, which is $2,500, equipment rental expense, which is $1,000. I think to a minor extent, material expenses. So there is money put aside for that. And of course, it's very difficult to gauge on a year-to-year basis. I mean, this winter was fairly mild.
Right.
So I don't think we spent that much money towards it. Now, I think also a large part of your fund balance consists of money that was not used for the first, year or two that we put aside, because we were putting aside a significant amount each year. So there is some money left over in the fund balance. I believe I did increase the wages from the initial proposal, and that was due to the extra $3,000 that we found. So I feel comfortable at this point with snow removal. But of course, you know, we could very prudently put the $600 towards wages, or we could simply leave it as it is and reserve that for the fund balance, if there's nothing else that the board wants to put $600 towards.
I
Well,
would
obviously,
Mr.
like-
Byer says save it.
I'd like to see us put the garden club has to buy a lot of plants this year. If we could maybe put even $100 toward that would ease our garden club budget.
I think we've got $1,500 for flower boxes, don't we?
That's separate from the actual DDA. This would be like a donation to garden club for plants and materials.
Well, I think one of the ideas of saving some money has been to be able to fund some larger projects down the road as we've looked at some of the big picture projects. And I would agree with Mr. Byer. I'd be comfortable saving it.
I'd be comfortable with saving it too, because we can always, if we change our mind later, we can amend our budget.
Any other thoughts?
I say save it.
Well, so it sounds like we have a majority, but I guess the chair, if you want, you could entertain a motion to donate to the garden club or to save it.
Well, any further discussion on that?
I motion to put it into the general fund.
What's the general fund?
Fund balance, I think.
Our fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have a question. The bike race, is that still on? Do we know?
The bike race will be postponed for this year. It's gonna be rescheduled for 2021.
So then this $1,000 in our budget for the bike race is now,
That's still appropriate. The last meeting, we did not allocate any money to this year's event. We allocated it to next year's.
Okay, thanks.
okay, thanks.
Although to Rose's point, the city council did approve, I think, $1,500 towards this year's event.
Yes.
And now, obviously, if the event's canceled through next year, we might be able to scare up $100 for a donation to the garden club, if that's what you're thinking. But we do it through the city council and not through the DDA.
Okay.
So, okay, could I get a motion then to approve the budget as written with item M being dedicated currently to reserve fund?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Byer says.
30 seconds.
Any further discussion? Then we'll do a roll call vote again, please. Mr. Byer,
Yes,
Ms. Ensley,
approved.
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yeah.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Howland, is she there yet?
I don't
Ms.
see her.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Ringler votes yes, and Mr. Verizinga.
Yes.
Thank you. And then did we want to do a mural update? Do we have anything new to report?
Yep, so just prior to apparently the world being flipped upside down, I met with Miss Ensley and the muralist. We had a productive discussion about it. I did present to him a copy of the contract that I was working on that would, enable him to start working on the mural. Unfortunately, I haven't finished it. It's one of my goals for the week is to finish that. Get it sent over to him, have it signed by him, then work out payment terms, because obviously we don't want to give him the full amount up front. We want to see some progress before we pay him any amount, and discuss when he anticipates being done with it, which of course is to a certain extent reliant on the weather as well. So I guess it's a work in process, and I'll keep updating you as it goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And another business. Okay, any We'll move on then to correspondence.
Yep, so thank you for whoever put all those pictures together. That was very helpful. I think one of the things we should probably do is identify which ones need to be simply removed and which ones need to be replaced with a more modern, updated red sign that goes in line with the kind of theme that the DDA has put together for the city. I know that there's some parking, green parking lot signs that are kind of mid-block in a couple locations. Don't think those benefit anybody, and they probably simply need to be removed. But there's also a green sign here in front of City Hall that probably needs to be replaced with something that's red and reflective and meets with the standards that the DDA set. So I don't know if somebody wants to take that on. I mean, it's not difficult. It'll take 5 minutes, I think. But simply make recommendations for removal and recommendations for replacement.
That can obviously be, well, the last time the sign committee met was to put together that list, but we can certainly re-meet and make recommendations before the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be difficult. You guys could just let me do it if you want. But, you know, I just may not have the same ideas that you guys do, so.
I think we should meet.
Well, it's up, we can ask the sign committee quickly if we want to meet and do this, or we can let the city manager create a list and then we can either approve or meet and create our own list if we don't like it.
I say let the city manager do it.
My only concern was some of these signs would not actually be in the DDA district.
Well, so that's potentially true. Now, the DDA law does say that the DDA can exert its influence outside of the district if it affects the inside of the district. So if you've got a sign such as down by the wastewater treatment plant on the White Pine Trail, that's not located within the district, but it's pointing people towards the district.
Right, okay.
So you can't expend your funds for that. Now, even if we can't apply that logic to it, the city does appreciate the work the DDA does, and we mostly like to play along and do the same thing. Because, of course, we're trying to use the expertise of the business owners, which is what the DDA largely represents, to guide what we're doing. So if the DDA simply wants to make recommendations to the city to remove certain things that might not be located in the district, we might be able to do that on our own funds and have the DDA pay for anything else that's located in the district. So I'm not that concerned about it, but I do appreciate the concern you have.
Well, if it would work, it'd be fine. I just didn't know.
So how about this? If you guys are comfortable, I'll put together a list, maybe in talking with certain council members who can help me and guide me. I will then send out a list to the board, and you guys can approve of that at the next meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, 9A, second A, Northern Lights sale.
They're very persistent. These were the folks I think that we used to get the light up displays that used to go on the light poles up and down Main Street. Obviously, we stopped using them to save some money, but they keep sending us their brochure. So I figured I'd put it in front of you, and I have no recommendation for action.
Okay. Should we move on then to director's report?
Yeah, okay. So thank you, everybody, I guess, for being here on Zoom. This is kind of a new thing for local government, obviously, because we are required by the Open Meeting Act to allow members of the public come to our board meetings. I know that a number of you business owners have used these in the past. So it's all a learning experience, as you guys saw at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you, Rebecca. I know you put a lot of time and effort into getting these set up. And hopefully we're doing everything required of us under the executive orders. And hopefully we're able to get public participation. I know we haven't had much public participation. But I'll tell you what, based on just my experience in the Planning Commission, City Council, and DDA meetings, we don't get a lot of public participation, which is a good and bad thing. As some of you obviously know from a long time before I was here, we had a lot of angry folks maybe didn't like the way some of these things were going. I saw that also in action with the school and their former administrator. So I guess this is a long way of saying I think the public is currently trusting us. They think we're doing a good job. I think we're expending the public's money appropriately. And people tell me all the time they like the direction the city's going and they think it's looking better and better every time they go out. So appreciate all the work you guys are doing, and that is my report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we, we'll move on then to any trustee comments? And
Mr. Byer has one.
yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, whoever took the picture of our parts van in front of Morley Park, Museum Park, thank you very much for that ad. Which brings me to my real comment, which was, I recall I voted no to put up the sign, the speed sign on Main Street going into town. I will admit that I probably was wrong about that. It seems to be working. That's what I do. I look out this window most several hours a week, and traffic has slowed down. Now that, the combination with the fact that the police do sit at Aquafoil quite a bit, I'm sure that helps also, but the sign's working, in my opinion, so that's my only
Also helps
comment.
that there's no traffic.
No, I'm talking about before this. I haven't been here since there's been no traffic. I haven't been here in a week, so.
Thanks, Bernie.
You're
Laura?
welcome.
Laura, any comments?
Nope, hope everybody's healthy.
Jerry, any commentary?
Well, we're in this together, and there's no IMP, and we're moving forward, and that's a good thing.
Was difficult to hear.
I think he said that there's no I in team. We're all doing a good job, and we just have to get through it together.
Thank you, sir. Perry?
I want to make a comment about what Bernie said. One of the things I like about this one versus the other one that you see, if people are going too fast, it says slow down, was I don't think the other one that the city itself had bought, I don't think it said that. And so I think that helps when it flashes at people saying slow down.
Yeah, it's a more expensive model, so we had that as an additional thing that could be added to it. The portable one, just it was a cheaper model. I think the only option we have there is that we flash the number at them to get their attention if they're going too fast. And I've actually been meaning to get up to that newly installed solar one, because I think it starts flashing at you at 26 miles per hour, which I think is a little distracting. I think it's normal to be going 26, 27 miles an hour in a 25 zone. So I might move the flashing up to 30, but I have to go up and actually look at it to do it. So
I think 29 is where it starts saying slow down.
okay. So between 25 and 29, it's just flashing, and then at 29 it says slow down.
Yep.
Okay. Not that you're doing 29 or above, though, right, Perry?
No, I typically don't walk that fast. If I start walking faster than that, everybody else better run too.
Thank you. Is Sally back on yet? Okay, Rose, did you have any comments?
Just stay safe, everybody, and good luck. We have another month of quarantine, and we all miss our friends and families. So just think we have phones and emails and all that stuff, how blessed we are in that respect. And thank you.
Thank you. Todd?
Say, let's hope our next one's in person. Or at least the one after that.
That's all right. Agreed. Thank you. And I will also echo the city manager's comments. I think some of these physical changes are readily apparent, and I think people have noticed. So appreciate everybody's input and hard work in getting some of these things done. So if there's no other comments, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Who's that?
Perry, so moved it.
I'll second that.
Second by Rose. Thank you. I will then do a quick roll call for adjournment. Mr. Byer?
Adjourn.
Ms. Ensley,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Vriesinga,
Yes.
and I concur. Thank you all for doing this awkwardly.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.